Thank you, Lorraine.
Thank you. Hope you can see those slides okay. That's great. That's good. And welcome. And thank you for showing interest in ESDAS, East Surrey Domestic Abuse Services. What I'm really going to do is to take you through a bit about ESDAS, a bit about what we do, and really how to become a volunteer. The process that we go through and the training and support that we make available. So to start with ESDAS services, we operate in Mole Valley, Reigate and Banstead and Tandridge areas of Surrey. We have sister domestic abuse agencies in the other parts of Surrey, so we do liaise with them quite regularly, particularly Your Sanctuary, because they own a refuge for clients fleeing domestic abuse. So we do operate collaboratively, but we're responsible for clients in those areas. And we are a charitable organisation. We're a charitable company. We've got a list of trustees and our CEO, Michelle, who's been with us a number of years and is very well respected in the sector. So in terms of the support that we provide for people experiencing domestic abuse, we have some specialist roles within the organisation, and these are called IDVAs, Independent Domestic Abuse Advocates. And together with our outreach workers who perform a very similar role, they are specialists in particular areas. So they might be based at East Surrey Hospital or Reigate Police Station. They may be specialists in dealing with mental health issues or young people. And they provide specialist advice to clients that are experiencing domestic abuse. Most of the referrals come through the police, so the police will, if the client wants them to, will refer on to us, and then we will contact the client and ask them what sort of support they would like, and we do a risk assessment at that early stage. And we're always trying to listen really to what the client needs and empower them. Because one of the effects of domestic abuse is to take the control away from the client. And so we're obviously really interested in making sure that they have those choices back in their own life and they can choose what support they need. So we're looking at their health and their well-being, making sure that they've got the essentials that they need, that they've got enough food, that, any additional support that they might need for their children. It might be benefits, it may be help navigating the court process. And we also have a team of counsellors. We have one full-time paid counsellor, and we also have 2 volunteer counsellors that help. We can, the counselling services do tend to be oversubscribed, so we can also seek support from partner agencies for counselling as well for our clients. Another service is courses that we run for clients. So these courses help with the empowerment and the recovery. So things like Freedom Programme and Own My Own Life. We also offer a drop-in service for clients, and that enables them to come back if they need anything, or just to talk to people that have been through a similar circumstance as them, which can be really, really, really helpful. So to put our services in the context of domestic abuse in East Surrey. As we all know from looking at the internet or reading a newspaper, there is an increase in demand for services. And we've also noticed a higher level of complexity with domestic abuse cases, whether that is because of the pandemic. We're not entirely sure, but it's certainly their needs have become more complex. And there's a particular growth in domestic abuse amongst the 16 to 24-year-old sector of the population, which again is worrying. And we have got based with us a specialist in women and girls, violence against women and girls specialist. So together with our own IDVA, who works with young people, those two people are going into colleges and schools to particularly try and target that segment of the population and to find out what their needs are and what's the support that they need. There's been an increase in the number of referrals. Most of the referrals come through the police, but we do get quite a few self-referrals from people that are not sure whether they're experiencing domestic abuse or do know that it's domestic abuse and they're not sure what to do next. It can be a very difficult time because they have lived and loved their perpetrator possibly for a number of years, and as hard as it may be for people who haven't been in that situation, it can take quite a number of times before they actually finally leave the relationship, because most of their life is wound up with the perpetrator. You know, they could own a home together, they could own a business together, they've got children, they've got family ties, friendships, or it may be that the perpetrator has completely isolated them from their family and friends and they're dependent on them, which is quite often the case. And so it makes it more difficult for them to leave. We do have quite a high percentage of high-risk cases. These go to something called the Multi-Agency Risk Assessment Committee, MARAC. And that's where a number of different agencies, children's services, social services, the police, fire service, the DA agencies attend to package of support for that client. And it can also result in a referral to something called the sanctuary scheme. So that's where the client wishes to remain in their own home, but they are at high risk of abuse from the perpetrator, and the designing out crime officer will attend the property and discuss with the client the measures that they can put in place to make the home as safe as possible. So that can include changing the locks, maybe even changing the door, CCTV, special film that they can put on windows, a safe room in the property, all designed to give them enough time for the emergency services to arrive, so to keep them safe until the emergency services can arrive. And we can pay for that through this amount of money that is in the sanctuary scheme. We've also worked with 30 children on a one-to-one basis or through play therapy. We have our own children's service within ESDAS, and they will work with the families, the non-abusive parent and the child, as required by the client, if they feel that their child needs some additional support. Obviously, we are linked in with all the other services as well, to make sure that the child is supported. 80% of survivors who engaged with us felt that there was an increase in empowerment and safety, which obviously we're really happy about. That's a great outcome, and it's really what we're wanting. We're wanting them to feel that they've got those choices back and that they're safe for the future. It is a gendered crime, so 95% of survivors were female, and quite a high percentage had children. We're not entirely sure whether the reason for the high percentage of women is genuinely that is just the case, that men are more often perpetrators, or whether it's because men are less likely to report it as abuse. So there's a number of different people have got views on that, and whether it's just that men do suffer from domestic abuse, but they just don't feel that they can admit to it. So, but we do have some male survivors, and we do support them. And we also see more incidents now of the LGBT community also reporting abuse. And we have a specialist in Surrey, not within ESDAS, but within your sanctuary, who specialises in that community and can provide support. So what do our volunteers do? Well, it's absolutely no exaggeration to say that ESDAS could not deliver the services that we do without the support of our volunteers. We've got roughly about 50 volunteers. About half of those work directly with clients in some capacity and are trained to do so. The other half are people that can't commit on a regular basis but would like to help us on an ad hoc basis. So they might be able to collect something from Stripey Stalk in Reigate and deliver it to the office, or help us in some other way. I don't know, going to an event, for instance, or speaking about ESDAS services, but they can't help us on a regular basis. So we call that group our ad hoc volunteers, but they're equally valuable. But both groups are equally valuable. The client-facing volunteers, there's a sort of range of opportunities. So some will provide emotional support for volunteers. So they'll work with our clients one-to-one. Normally this happens when the client has been through the crisis stage. So they've had support from our outreach team. They've had counselling, and they may have had been attending group work as well. And then they're looking to rebuild their lives, and it can be a scary point. At that point can be a bit scary for clients, because the support that they've had is starting to ebb away. So actually having someone who can be alongside them at that point, encouraging them to join groups, or maybe change their job or get a job, or go back into education is another example, or make friends, because sometimes people have fled, they don't really know anyone in the area. They may have a small child and just need someone to go along with them to a mother and toddler group, so that they're just not walking in on their own. So, or they may not even know where they are. So that's when volunteers can play a really valuable role in giving them that confidence and reinforcing, if you like, the work that they've done through counselling and through that group work. And we do get some fabulous feedback from clients that have had that support. The support itself is for a maximum of 3 months. very occasionally it will be extended, and the reasons for that are normally because the client or the volunteer have had to miss, say, a month. Perhaps they've been ill, or possibly they've had an extended holiday somewhere, so they can pick up again when they come back. Or it might be just that the client is just not ready, and collectively we'll make a decision that it can extend for another few weeks. The next sort of category is court support volunteers. Our clients' hearings are normally heard in Guildford, that's the most popular one, or Horsham, and very less frequently Croydon and Staines. And I can usually find someone who will go to Guildford, Horsham, possibly Croydon, but I very rarely find someone who'll go to Staines, because it is quite difficult to get to. I have got one lady, but if she's not available, we can't help them. So the court support volunteers, again, going to court, you may have had this experience yourself, but it's pretty scary. And if they've never been to court before, or they're dreading the thought that they might see the perpetrator or hear him, that can be a trigger as well, then it's lovely to have someone with you if you don't have your own support network around you. So that is another really helpful sort of role that our volunteers provide. And again, the clients are really, really grateful for that. We also occasionally get requests for volunteers to attend a looked after child review or housing meetings with clients. And again, they're always very grateful for anyone that can spare the time to go along with them. The volunteer role is obviously not to give advice, but just to be there and to provide sort of maybe some practical support, like getting them a coffee, or just to be alongside them, really. And then the sanctuary scene support I mentioned earlier would be attending the client's property with the designing out crime officer. Because of the high risk nature of the event, then we give the volunteer the officer's telephone number, and they make contact beforehand so that they can go in together and come out together. They don't happen very often, I think, possibly because clients tend to have a family member that can attend, or possibly they're happy to see the officer on their own. But if they do come up, they tend to come up very last minute, because of the nature, because it's high risk and it's urgent. They come up very, very suddenly. So often we don't have anyone available. Freedom program one-to-one delivery. This is the Freedom program is very popular with clients, and it's a very well regarded program in the sector. So sometimes clients aren't able to attend a group session, maybe because they don't have the confidence to go into a group yet, or maybe because attending an in-person group is really difficult, if you've got a job or you've got young children. So they welcome the opportunity of having a sort of 1 hour a week sessions with a volunteer who can take them through the program. And we train volunteers to do that. We also have volunteers that support our group work manager to deliver in-person courses like Freedom Program and Own My Own Life Recovery Toolkit. And they're very popular courses for those that are able to attend. And volunteers go along, and their role is really to support the facilitator. Sometimes we get clients that get upset by some of the content, so the volunteer might take them outside and just be with them until they're feeling recovered, and then hopefully they can rejoin the course. Or it might be helping with refreshments, or just welcoming people into the room and making them feel comfortable there, really. And then our drop-in, as I mentioned earlier, we are running two. The one in Redhill had to halt anyway because of the problems with the Harlequin, which is where we were holding it. And the Oxford one will resume in the new year. We have volunteers that come and help us in the office. This is a particularly good type of role if you would like a career in the DA sector, because you'll really get exposed to all the different types of roles that our staff have, how the services are delivered, and it's a really good opportunity to see how it all works, and you know, get that exposure if you're thinking, an experience if you're thinking of a career in the sector. It's also very, very helpful for us because we have people sort of obviously going out quite a lot to visit clients, meet with clients. So it's useful to have that extra support in the office, updating our systems or answering the telephone. And we have one volunteer at the moment who's absolutely fantastic, and we're hoping at some stage that she will apply for a role with us when her circumstances allow her to do so. We're always very grateful for anyone that's got event administration, fundraising, or attending events for us is always very, is always welcomed, really. So that might be giving a talk to a mothers' union or similar community group about ESDAS services. We can provide a narrative for you. If you belong to a large organization, then fundraising through a bake sale or something like that, we would be very, very happy about. Or if you've got ideas about holding an event for ESDAS, maybe you've got an idea about a craft fair or something like that, then please, we're always welcoming volunteers to help us with those type of things, because they're the areas where we don't really have a lot of time to spare. The most of the staff are working with clients, so we don't get a lot of extra time to deal with those type of things, and generally speaking the staff don't have that kind of experience. So anyone that's got that type of enjoys that type of thing or has got that experience, then that would be lovely. So in terms of the training and support that we give our volunteers, initially we always ask volunteers to do mandatory training in domestic abuse awareness. So that's it's about an hour and a half online module which you can do in your own time about domestic abuse awareness, and that will take you through the basics of what constitutes domestic abuse, what the law says about it, essentially, and also how to have a conversation with someone that might disclose to you. So it's the essentials, really, of domestic abuse. We also safeguarding obviously is a mandatory aspect, and we have access to an online module for safeguarding for children. One of our trustees is an expert with safeguarding adults, so she normally delivers an online safeguarding module for adults in the evening. but we also have a recording for those people that can't attend, or if there's going to be any delay with the next one, then we ask the volunteers to review the recording and then attend the next one if they've got some questions. Boundaries is another area that is mandatory for those that are wanting to work with clients directly, and that one again is delivered online by our lead counsellor, and we also have a recording for anyone that can't attend. Court support, again, we've got an online module, but we also follow up with our own ESDAS online and occasionally face-to-face if we have enough volunteers who can attend. Every year we have an annual training day for our volunteers, and that's a great opportunity because everyone can get together, have lunch, opportunity to meet the team, hear about the bigger picture stuff in ESDAS, so what we're doing, what the new initiatives might be, new projects that ESDAS might be involved with, but also an opportunity to find out a bit more about what individual members in the ESDAS team do. So you might get a day in the life of an outreach worker, or a hospital lead, for instance, is another fascinating role to hear about. We have sort of regular catch-ups with volunteers that are working, particularly those working directly with clients one-to-one. And we're also introducing peer supervision meetings. So that will be when a group of volunteers can come together with me to talk about their experience of supporting clients. And that's an opportunity to share in a confidential way their experiences and share any uncertainties as a group, so that we can talk about that and talk about, you know, the best way of dealing with those things. Occasionally our lead counsellor will also, or one of our other counsellors will attend as well to give advice. We're developing a series of guidance notes for volunteers because currently most of the information is in our policy documents, or which we give to volunteers when they join, or through our online or the training modules. But to support that, to underpin that, then we're developing guidance notes, which will be put onto our website. We're currently at the moment developing a new platform with a private area for volunteers, and that information will be there, that where they can easily contact it, access it rather. So travel expenses we pay, and also there's an allowance for lunch. So for instance, when you're volunteering at court, you'll be there for a few hours, or if you're in the office as well, we pay expenses for that as well. In terms of the process for becoming a volunteer, the first step is to send us a CV or a statement of experience and strengths with a covering letter. And then I'll arrange an informal discussion. And that's just an opportunity for us to ask questions. So you can ask us more about the roles, or and I will be asking, you know, what you're particularly interested in, what you'd like to do, and then we can decide which training is most appropriate for the areas that you're interested in. And that's something then that I can get organised for when the application process is complete. So there'll be then an application form which is fairly short, and that includes a box where you put 2 referees' details in. And we also ask you to obtain a basic DBS certificate. Following that, there's an agreement that we ask you to sign, and that really is our commitment to you in terms of training and support, and also covers confidentiality, because obviously you will be exposed to clients' confidential information, and so that obviously that's important, and also our commitment to you in terms of your personal information. And then we'll send you the welcome email with details of the training. This is just a slide which gives you an idea of the value of the support that ESDAS, including our volunteers, the value that gives the clients, and how they're so grateful for that. And it's really difficult for me to really articulate that how grateful they are, really, because they're at a low point. You know, it's a difficult time for them, and that additional support from the volunteers, just to help them piece their lives back together, and to get them through that is enormously helpful. Before I worked for ESDAS, I was a volunteer, and I worked one-to-one with some clients, and I found it really rewarding when people, one lady had some mental health issues, and she was moving on in her life, so it meant moving home, it meant moving jobs, and it was an amazing time. But you could tell gradually over the weeks how she grew in confidence. She started to believe in herself again, and that is just that's just a wonderful thing to experience with someone. It's just so rewarding, really, to see someone grow in that way. So yeah, I mean, I found it was a privilege, and when I had the opportunity to give up my day job, I managed to come and they said, "Oh, we've got a job." so the rest, as they say, is history. So that's how I came to work for ESDAS. But yeah, I found it very rewarding as a volunteer. I don't know if you've got any questions for me, but I'm very happy to try and answer any.
Thank you so much, Lorraine. That was clear, wonderful, and touching, I must say. So if Sunita and Jamie have any questions, please unmute yourself. Sunita.
Can I just ask what all of your individual roles are?
Oh yeah, so if I go back.
I think I missed that, sorry.
No, that's okay. It's all right. It's not you, it's me. I didn't make it very clear enough. So these are the main areas. So the emotional.
Sorry, your roles.
Oh, my role.
You,
Oh,
Frida,
sorry.
and Lisa?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm Frida Norman. I'm the CEO of VARB, Voluntary Action Reigate and Banstead. We are organizing events called Meeting the Organization to connect volunteers, potential volunteers, with our wonderful organization in Reigate and Banstead. Lisa Faischke, I've introduced her. She's our wonderful pillar of VARB. She's been with the organization for 14 years, and she born and bred in Reigate and Banstead, so she knows everyone and everything. She's got a wealth of knowledge, and she supports and coordinates our volunteers and the organizations. And our wonderful Lorraine today, she is the Volunteer and Community Engagement Manager for ESDAS, East Surrey Domestic Abuse Services.
Oh, thank you.
And you, which organization are you coming from? Or
well, I actually retired in July, but one of my previous jobs was as office manager for our local domestic abuse services. And I actually did a job after that, but it always resonated with me to sort of volunteer in this particular sector.
Oh,
So here I
That's
am.
that's perfect. Please come and talk to me.
I will do. I will do.
Fabulous.
Thank
Do
you.
you have any
Thank-
questions right now that you would like to share with
No, no,
Lorraine?
just a lot to take in really, because obviously everyone, it's been really well presented. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Jamie.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm the new vicar of St John's in Caterham Valley, and we are looking at potentially hosting a volunteer fair in 2024. So I figured this would be a good thing to come on to find out a bit more about what you do. I think you've come to speak at the church before because they were talking about a training session they've had. But if that volunteer fair is something that you want to be engaged in, can I leave my email in the chat for you?
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
great. Thank you. Thank you.
I think if I'm not mistaken, Lisa, you have both Sunita and Jamie email addresses.
I
when
have
they-
got them, yes, but feel free to
Okay.
share
Yeah.
in the
I'll
chat
leave
if
it.
you want to.
Yeah,
Thank
she's
you.
going to create the connection with
Yeah,
Lorraine for both
yeah.
of you. Lisa.
Sorry, I've just got a couple of questions for Lorraine. So you said that you require references. Can they be character references or do they have to be professional?
No, they can be character references. Yeah, that's right.
Fabulous. And do you arrange the DBS check?
No, we don't. We ask the volunteer to obtain a basic DBS check online, but we do pay for it's about £18, I think, but we
Okay,
do refund that to you.
fabulous. Thank you. And what is the minimum amount of time a volunteer can volunteer with you?
It depends because on what you want to do. Obviously, if you want to work with clients, then ideally, if you can be available over at least a period of, say, a year with us would be ideal. I mean, obviously, we're not prescriptive because people have got lives and things change, and we never know really what's going to happen. But obviously, if you can stay with us for at least a year, that's really helpful because it means then that you get a chance to work with a few volunteers, and that's great for us. But obviously, if you can't, then that's fine. We also do have this group of volunteers that are that know straight away that they're not going to have a lot of time available, and it might be only occasionally they can help us out. So if you want to go on to that list, that's fine. And what we do is we just mail out requests, and people can, volunteer if they want to for that particular thing. And it could be that, if you've got a specialist skill and you would like to do a workshop for clients. So for instance, we've got one lady who specializes in careers development advice, and so she's on our ad hoc list because she doesn't do it all the time. But if every now and again we have a group of clients where we think we could really do with her doing a workshop, then we can contact her. So the volunteering can be flexible. We're really keen to listen to what you feel you would like to help us with, and then we will try and work with you to make that happen.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just one last question. Sorry, Frida.
Go.
Just one
And
last
then we're
question.
yeah.
If a volunteer doesn't have their own transport, is it easy to volunteer with you, or do they particularly need their own transport to get to courts and that sort of thing?
No, and in fact, our star court support volunteer, she doesn't drive.
Okay.
But she manages to get to, say, for instance, Croydon or Guildford by train is reasonably straightforward for her. And if there was going to be a difficulty, we would always pay for a taxi, say, for instance, for her at the other end, because we're just so grateful for someone to support the client, you know, rather than them be there on their own and be scared and, you know, afraid. We would rather do that for, you know, to enable the volunteer to be there, so we can facilitate transport. It isn't really a problem. And also, if you wanted to work with a client one-to-one, quite often clients will say, you know, online or even telephone is acceptable. You know, post-pandemic, we're a lot, you know, that's definitely more of a common medium for them to use now. So it doesn't have, they don't have to go out in the evening. They could do it from home and or during the day and use Teams. You know, that's acceptable, or WhatsApp even some people use. So
Thank you. Do you have any volunteers with disability, whether physical or neurodiversity?
We have got volunteers who have got particular medical conditions and some mobility issues, but we're always, you know, really open to volunteers, you know, coming to us and not thinking that they wouldn't be able to do it. You know, we will work with our volunteers because our clients are, you know, are diverse, and so therefore we would like our volunteers, you know, to feel able to come. And domestic abuse is no respecter of any sector of the community. It affects all sectors of the community. So, you know, we want to support everyone that, you know, they want to feel that volunteers can support others, you know, whatever their circumstances, you know, just talk to us. Yeah.
Thank you. And use a couple of acronyms. So you say the DA sector, which is domestic abuse, and then you use the LGBT community, which I'm less familiar.
The LBGTQ, I think it's QI plus now.
Okay, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fabulous. Fabulous. I think we got just one. Is it the last question?
Sorry, can I just ask a quick question? Would you be sending us the slides?
Yeah, you can certainly have the slides.
That'd
yeah,
be great. Actually, it has all your contact details on it as well, and all the volunteering opportunities. So it just gives me a chance to have a look to see, you know, which areas.
Yeah, definitely. And
my help.
Yeah, definitely. And if you want to have you know, if there's anything on there that doesn't make sense or you'd like to know more about, then, you know, I'm happy just to have an informal conversation about it. And and anything that you particularly are interested in, you know, do chat to me about that, because wherever possible, we try to, you know, make sure that the volunteer, you know, feels that they're in the area that they're most interested in.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And also, businesses. Sorry, we have sometimes. Sorry, it's gone out of my mind. Corporates, yes.
Yeah, corporates.
Corporate. Do you work at all with corporate, or maybe because of the nature of the support?
We do give advice to some companies. Sometimes companies will say, could you give a talk? I mean, not just companies, also councils will come to us and say, could you give a talk to our staff about domestic abuse? And what we try to do is to present not just about ESDAS and about its services and the extent of abuse, but also how to have a conversation about domestic abuse, the practical, you know, nuts and bolts. If your colleague, for instance, discloses something to you, or if you've got a member of staff, you know, if you're a manager and you've got a member of staff that discloses something, or vice versa, you know, it's helpful for people to have that information. So we do try to make that service available when companies, you know, contact us. I'm doing one actually next week for a company that's asked for that, and as a curved ball said, is it okay if our South Africa colleagues listening, and I said, so long as they understand that we only deal with East Surrey.
Not worldwide.
Yeah, that was a bit of a shock.
That's fantastic though, isn't it? You're getting the word out there though.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
main
that's the main
thing,
thing,
really.
isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely. It's just raising awareness and helping people to understand, you know, how it manifests. And I don't know if you're familiar with the 16 days of activism, but that's starting next week, or is it? No, it's Saturday it starts. And it's the UN International Day for Ending Violence to Women and Girls on Saturday. And that's when it starts, and it ends on the UN Human Rights Day, which is the 10th of December, I think. And traditionally, DA agencies will all do something during the 16 days, some campaign or raising awareness or offering free talks. And this year we're doing a campaign called Cut It Out, which was developed by Thames Valley Police, but we're using their training module, which was directed at hairdressers and beauticians. And a lot of disclosures are made to hairdressers and beauticians because of the personal nature of the relationship. And in fact, actually the other way around as well, because I decided to treat myself to a facial a few months ago, thinking, oh, that would be nice, nice and relaxing. And so I'm sort of settling myself down, and the young therapist that was doing it, she said, I just said to her, what are you doing this evening? And she said, I've broken up with my boyfriend. It was a toxic relationship. Oh no.
Yeah.
So I said, well, are you getting any support? So yeah, so we had a conversation about that. So, you know, ended up a different experience than I expected, but a good one, because she decided to separate from him, and permanently, so which was good news really for her and her family. So they were very worried. But yeah, so you can literally have a disclosure at any time, anywhere. And so if you have some additional information about it, it's a great thing. You know, you could potentially save someone's life. You know, it's, you know, I'm not exaggerating. You could potentially save someone's life by knowing. And I know Sunita that will resonate with you, having worked in the DA sector. So by just that simple conversation, you know, which is simple for you, but for them, it could be life-changing.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lorraine. Again and again, thank you. Thank you